Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, so we are from 6th group of the D class. So in this group we have 6 presenters that will explain this material. There are myself, Tiara Putri, and then Afiatus Sonia Anasa Goras, Ahmad Faisal Muksinin, Zufar Akil, Safi Emelda Khoiro, and then the last is Nur Sabrina Rahmawati. So we will explain about part of figurative language. There are imagery, metaphor, and simile. So the first I will explain about imagery. What is imagery? Imagery is the use of figurative language that evoke a sensory experience to the reader. So when the readers wrote a poem with using imagery, they will play to the reader's sense, providing them with sights, tastes, smells, sounds, internal and external feelings, and even internal emotions. So, for example, that girl buy a soft satin fabric. The word soft appeals to the that sense of touch.
Hi everyone, my name is Varakil and my ID number is 19322021. And now I would like to presenting about type of imagery. There are approximately 7 types of imagery. They are the first one we have kinesthetic, the second one we have olfactory, the third one we have visual, the fourth one we have gustatory, and the fifth one we have organic, and the sixth one we have tactile, and the last one we have auditory. So the first one we have kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is form of poetic imagery that appeals to the reader's sense of movement. uh, Basically kinesthetic is the way narrator or the writers engage the sense of movement of the poem itself. And the second one we have olfactory. Olfactory is form of poetic imagery that appeals to the reader's sense of smell by describing something the speaker of the poem inhales. So sense is one of the most difficult triggers of memory and emotion, but can be difficult to write about in poem. So in olfactory, uh, the narrator is trying to engage the sense of smell. And the third one we have visual. Visual is form of poetic imagery that appeals to the reader's sense of sight by describing something the speakers or narrator of the poem sees. And so in visual, you can see and you can see the visual and it includes visual description, also physical attributes, including color, size, shape, lightness, darkness, shadow, and shade, and etc. And the fourth one we have gustatory. Gustatory is form of poetic imagery that appeals to the reader's sense of taste by describing something the speaker or narrator of the poem tastes. So in gustatory, you can taste and includes flavors, and this can include the 5 basic tastes like sweet, salt, bitter, sour, and umami, as well as the texture of the texture and sensations tied to the act of eating. And the next one we have organic. Organic is form of poetic imagery that communicates internal sensation or feeling inside. And the fifth one we have tactile. Tactile is form of poetic imagery that appeals to the reader's sense of touch by describing something the speaker of the poem feels on their body. In tactile, you can feel and include texture and the many sensation human being experience when touching something. And the last one we have auditory. Auditory. Uh, this form of poetic imagery appeals to the reader's sense of hearing or sound. This is the way things sound. Literary devices such as onomatopoeia and alliteration can help create sound on writing. And that's all from me. 7 types of imagery. And the next material will be presented by my other friends.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name Ahmad Faisal Musinin. My ID number 19320180. For this time, I will presentation about metaphor. So let's get started. Metaphor. A metaphor is a feature of speech that describes an object or action in a way that isn't literally true, but helps explain an idea or make a comparison. Okay, next slide. Okay, metaphor definition. Definition of metaphor is a word or phrase for one thing that is used to refer to another thing in order to show or suggest that they are similar. An object, activity, or idea that is used a symbol of something else. Metaphor can make your word come to life. Often you can use a metaphor to make your subject more relatable to the reader or to make a complex thought easier to understand. And for example, love is a battlefield, Bob is Coach Potato, baby you are a firework, and I am titanium. Okay, next slide. Okay, metaphor versus simile. Here's a tip. Similes are like metaphors, but metaphors aren't similes. A metaphor makes a comparison by stating that one thing is something else, but a simile states that one thing is like something else. If you're trying to tell the difference between metaphor and similes, the more obvious comparison in similes makes them easier to identify as figures of speech.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Sabrina Ramawati. My student ID number is 19320227. And so now I will explain you guys about metaphor that already my friends explained before. Okay, now we add the different types of metaphors. So first, let's rewind of the definition of a metaphor as a figure of speech. Another example is that catchy tune, "You Are My Sunshine." Although you are literally a ray of light, you probably have a similarly uplifting effect on the speaker. But the definition of metaphor is actually broader than that. Often, metaphor is used loosely to mean any kind of symbolism. In literature, there are many other types of metaphors too, like implied metaphor, sustained metaphor, and dead metaphor, and the others too. Okay, we next to the types of metaphor. The first there is implied metaphor. This metaphor departs from the thing A is the thing B formula and allows you to make a more sophisticated and subtle type of comparison through you get it implication. Second is sustained metaphor. A sustained metaphor is carried through multiple sentences or even paragraph because it is used and developed over a larger section of text. A sustained metaphor can be a powerful literary device that provides strong, vivid imagery. This kind of metaphor is often found in songs and poetry, in famous songs and poetry like Shakespeare, Romeo compares Juliet to the sun over several lines, and there's so many then. Okay, next, the last, there is that metaphor. This metaphor is a cliche that has become so commonplace that the imagery has lost its power. Examples of death metaphors include uh, raining cats and dogs, throw the baby out with the bathwater, and heart of gold. With a good living metaphor, you get that fun moment of thinking about what it would look like if Elvis were actually singing to a hound dog. This is for example. But with a dead metaphor, the original image has already receded into the background. Using too many dead metaphors will cause your reader lose the interest. Reach a little further for an original image, or think about ways uh, to use a familiar metaphor in an unconventional way. Okay, I think that's enough from me. Thank you for your attention. Let's go to the next material.
Okay, with me, my name is Sophie Imelda Khoiro. You can call me Sophie, and my student ID number is 1932020 and 9. Okay, in this occasion, I will to tell you about simile. What is the simile? Okay, a simile is a type figurative language that describes something by comparing it something else with the words like or as. Simile is used literally device to assert similarity with the help of like or as, which are language constructs that establish equivalency. A proper simile creates an explicit comparison between two things that are different enough from each other such that their comparability appears unlikely. So, simile is in the tanda is like or as. For example, the statement "this poem is like a punch in the gut" features a simile. So, poems is like a punch in the gut. The poem is being explicitly compared to a punch in the gut with the word like. The word like. This is an effective simile in that a poem is not all similar to a punch in literal terms. However, figuratively, the simile comparison and association between those two things establish that impact of that poem on the speaker has the force of and feels similar to a punch in the gut. And other example, there are famous example like Easy Like Sunday Morning from Lionel Richie. All this moment will be lost in time, like tears in the rain. Life is right. Riding a bicycle to keep your balance. You must keep moving. From Albert Einstein. Not forgiving is like drinking red poison and then waiting for the right to die. From Enelmut, and writing a novel like driving a car at night. You can see only as far as headlight, but you can make the whole trip that way. From E.L. Doctorow. Parents are like God because you wanna know there are out there and you want them to think well of you, but you really only call when you need something. From Chat Planet. Okay, next.
My name is Afiatus Sonia Anasagoras. My student ID number is 193201711. Okay, for the next one, I will present about the difference between simile and metaphor. Maybe for some people, it is too difficult to understand the difference between simile and metaphor, because both are figures of speech made to create meaning through comparison. In fact, simile is part of the metaphor and are differentiated from two words, namely like and as. And then, metaphors make direct comparisons without using like and as. But simile uses the two words that are like and as in making comparison. And then next is about writing simile. Overall, as a literary device, simile functions as a means of creating an equivalent comparison or establishing similarity between two seemingly different things. This is an effective figure of speech for readers in that simile can create an association between two dissimilar entities or ideas that eliminate each other and enhance the meaning of both. Simile is an essential literary device for writers of both poetry and prose. It is important that writers construct proper simile so that the comparative meaning is not lost for the readers. In fact, like metaphor, simile are dependent on the understandable combination of principal term and secondary term. The principal term conveys the literal entity to be described, and the secondary term is used figuratively to add meaning. For the example, in the simile, the cat's fur felt smooth as silk. The principal term is cat's fur, and the secondary term is silk. By comparing the smooth feel of the cat's fur to the feel of silk, the reader can understanding. Okay, I think enough for our presentation. Thank you for your attention and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.